I got the guy who set me up.
Only one guy.
What do you mean?
Just thought that, no one would be stupid enough to try to take you on their own.
A major theme starts to develop. Sanchez constantly proclaims loyalty is more important than anything to him. He keeps his word to pay Killer for the money he's owed for his escape, even though he could have easily bumped him off and saved himself the payment. When Bond sets up Crest, making him look like he just stole Sanchez's money, he is immediately killed, along with a great line by Sanchez that not only is funny,
What about the money, Patron?
Moderate.
but also shows that the money is practically meaningless to him compared to the act of betrayal. This loyalty theme starts to mirror Bond, where it's his loyalty to Felix and Della that drives him for revenge. Ironically, it's Sanchez's importance he places on loyalty that is how Bond ultimately destroys him. At first, Bond is basically going to assassinate Sanchez. Just shoot him. He has his plan all worked out, but is interrupted by a bunch of ninjas, who turn out to be Hong Kong narcotic agents.
Who would have a signature gun?
James Bond. This is the property of Her Majesty's government. How did you get it?
Piss off.
I really buy the toughness that Dalton plays. I like how Bond is inadvertently hinted to be just a piece of government property, and will just be simply returned to London. Fortunately, he's saved by Sanchez, of all people, and simply killing him gets replaced by a more unique plan. In a lot of ways, the story is like Kurosawa's Yojimbo. Supposedly it was used as a basis for the script. A lone samurai comes into town and plays two gang families against each other. It's similar to what Bond does with Sanchez. He begins casting doubt on Sanchez's workers and framing them for breaking their devotion to him, all the while making himself appear to be an honest and helpful associate. By doing this, Sanchez kills his own people. Bond doesn't really have to do anything. I think it's a much more interesting way of going about hurting the villain than had Bond, say, just gone from one place to another, physically destroying his empire in big action scenes.
Vodka martini, eh?
Shaken, not stirred.
Ah, see.
The traditional Bond quips are pretty much absent from this film. I think this is a good thing for two reasons. One, the quips were not Dalton's strong suit, as shown in The Living Daylights. Two, I think they would have felt out of place in this dark entry to the series. This was the first Bond film that got slapped with an R rating for the violence. It was only when scenes were cut down it managed a PG-13, but still, it's pretty violent.
Everything for a man on holiday. Explosive alarm clock, guaranteed never to wake up anybody who uses it.
Really, the only humor in the film is given by Q. He shows up while he's on leave to check in on Bond. Now, this is pretty unusual considering what Bond and his relationship have been throughout the series. I never got the impression that Q was a big fan of Bond's, and he certainly wouldn't be hanging out with him at the local pub. Even though it seems out of character, I can go along with it. Q does provide him with some reasonable weapons that get used, and saves the question of how did Bond get a hold of them had Q not shown up. Plus, it's just an excuse to have Desmond Llewellyn make his required appearance, and he's given much more to do here than just his usual speech in the workshop. The casting of Wayne Newton, who plays Professor Joe, also provides some chuckles. The climax at the mountain retreat and the tanker truck chase is just a great one. Unlike the usual Bond climax, a lot of good guys coming in and fighting the bad guys, lots of explosions, this time it's Bond on his own, as he has been for the entire film. Okay, Pam helps a little. Once again, everything gets set up and things just start rolling. Watching the tanker truck chase unfold, it's clear there was a lot of thought, planning, and choreography to make it all come together. It's one of the most exciting and well put together climaxes in the series. You got planes, cars, trucks, and a bunch of gasoline. There are some obviously over-the-top stunts that would clearly not be possible in reality. But as I watch the scene, I'm so tuned into the whole sequence, I can give the film enough suspension of disbelief to just enjoy it. Dalton kicking out the windshield, looking like a man possessed with getting Sanchez. I'm completely sold on it all.
Don't you want to know why?
And when he pulls out the lighter he was given at the beginning of the film, it's a poetic end to Sanchez and Bond's personal vendetta. I have to say, before the credits roll, I don't get the winking fish statue. I don't know what that was about, but hey, whatever. I think Dalton gives another great performance. Davi is a memorable, sinister villain. The girls are all hot, the stunts are amazing, and the story is simple and straightforward. This is another Bond film I consistently see ranked as one of the worst in the series. I don't get it. I mean, I could see some flaws in some performances by the supporting actors.
You may be a pile of lighters, but I can only cover up so much.
Oh, I love James so much.
And Felix, after going through this terrible ordeal, just seems way too happy when he talks to Bond at the end of the film.
Good, I'll be out by then. M called.
That's always bothered me. Maybe it's just the medication he was given though. I guess some fans view this as just too typical an action movie, and maybe Dalton is just too brooding a Bond and there's no real sense of fun that some of the other films have. There's not enough gadgets maybe, or it's just too real a presentation and just not a traditional Bond film. For me, I would place this as one of the top films in the series. The film grossed over $150 million worldwide, but didn't fare that well in the US as past Bond films have. Its poor reception had been attributed to the film's late title change. It affected already completed promotional materials, which had to be changed. Also, the slate of big-budget popular films that summer might have helped draw attention away from it. For me, Dalton presented a perfect combination of toughness, intensity, sophistication, intelligence, cool, and some real human emotion. He didn't play Bond as an unflappable superhero or a comical persona in on a joke. I think he picked the right note to play the character for his two films. I'm not sure how he would have done in something like The Spy Who Loved Me. I don't think a light comical Bond would have been his strong suit, and the film probably wouldn't have been as good, mainly due to his performance. I mean, had Roger Moore or Pierce Brosnan been given License to Kill, I think the same problem would have happened. Dalton's performance works for the stories his films told. I think his two films he got to do were a real high point in the series. He originally was contracted to do at least 3 films, but a lawsuit concerning the character resulted in the longest delay between films in the series, 6 years. By 1993, Dalton was still expected to return, with a film that was scheduled to start filming in early 1994, but it never happened. On April 12, 1994, Timothy Dalton announced he would not return to the role of James Bond. After leaving Bond, Dalton continued to work in films, television, and theater. Following License to Kill, he appeared in numerous films including The Rocketeer, Made Men, and The Beautician and the Beast. He played Rhett Butler in the television miniseries Scarlet and Julius Caesar in Cleopatra.
Find Dusty Tails.
Hey! Dad, do you need me to call the police or something?
No police.
He played a parody of James Bond in the film Looney Tunes Back in Action in 2003, and he appeared as the villain in 2007's action comedy Hot Fuzz. But for Bond fans, the wait was once again on to see what was coming next with the series. And with Dalton's unexpected announcement, more importantly, who would be the next James Bond?
We gave her a nice honeymoon.